Hello again. On we go. On we can carry on and continue with extinction. I've got a new little background sticker here. I thought I'd try just a slightly different one. I thought the last one was maybe a bit too imposing, a bit too big. So we'll see how we get on with this one. May go for another design. You never know. Yeah, we had some reasonably good conversations and debates last stream. So hoping for more good stuff. Zomo in the chat says, I'm a gay, non-binary, black, autistic, Muslim, but I'm not vegan. Well, that's great for you, Zomo. You carry on doing that. And you don't need to be vegan. Veganism actually causes more suffering than it prevents, unfortunately. All right, we've got Exasperated in the queue. Good old classic Exasperated. How you doing?
Good. I'm actually here to debunk that little myth.
Okay.
We can get into actually veganism, funnily enough, because it actually causes less suffering.
How?
Yeah. So, are you familiar with agricultural techniques such as aeroponics, hydroponics?
Yep.
Now, through the Royal National Institute of Health and the Charlotte Lozier website, statistically, it's actually proven that landmass mitigation of plant-based farming only requires 20% of agricultural land to sustain the human population by threefold, as well as whereas currently 80% of current agricultural land use is being used for crop production to feed humans and animals, would only go down to 15%.
Yeah. So exactly. That's why veganism causes more suffering. So the less land we use, the more suffering there will be. So wiping out the forests, turning them into agriculture, yeah, that actually means there'll be less animals, less suffering.
It's not doing that at all. So what it does is it reduces landmass scaling. Vertical farming is when you have what's called stratigraphized. So it's multi-layered systems, right? So have you seen the plastic little buildings?
Yeah, most farming is not done vertically, it's done horizontally.
I know, and if you listen to anything that I just said, James, I said
Yeah,
that
I'm not hearing anything about how this reduces suffering.
Yeah, so currently, if we were to go ahead and use these methods of agricultural crop production, we would only be eating plants. We wouldn't have to be eating the animals, which would cause
Yeah,
less suffering.
I'm well aware of the fact that we could go vegan right now, but again, that would cause more suffering.
How?
So the more inefficient we are with land use, the less suffering there will be, right? Veganism is efficient with land use, and leaves the rest of the land to the wild animals to suffer on. So that's actually causes more suffering.
So what you're saying is less is more, which is a direct contradiction.
But how is it a contradiction?
Yeah, because you're saying that it promotes more suffering, more harm.
Yeah, I'm not here. Come on, do better. Come on, try again.
I've given you two sources that you can go ahead and look up right now.
So your counter argument is, well, you're saying it causes more harm. It doesn't. Do better.
You're just a philosophy wizard. What can I say, James?
No. Give me a real argument here. Something better than I disagree.
Okay. Would you like a formal syllogism?
No, just tell me why you think
Wait, so you
veganism
don't want an
reduces.
argument?
Just tell me
So
why.
you don't want an argument? Do you want an informal syllogism?
Tell me why you think veganism reduces suffering.
Do you not want an argument, James?
So this
just
was
offered
the
and you said no.
conversation you wanted to start with on why veganism reduces suffering. You've told us nothing about how it does, and now I'm asking you again to tell us how it reduces suffering. You're dodging the question.
So, in current agricultural land usage, we use 85% of the land to grow the crops, to feed humans and feed the animals. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that if we were to remove that 85% and drop it to a whopping only 15%, then this would equate to less suffering? It wouldn't cause as much suffering.
How? Where would the reduction come from?
Well, the reduction would come from agricultural techniques like hydroponics and aeroponics.
Tell me about
vertical
how the
farming.
animals are going to suffer less. I don't care about the hydroponics, right? Explain how this reduces or increases animals' suffering.
Yes, because inevitably what would happen is we would be eating the plants rather than going into having this designated agricultural land usage for the artificial insemination of animals.
Right. So, yeah, but as I've explained, there are
Okay,
far.
what did I say to you, James? Just repeat back what I said. Just repeat back.
So you're saying that essentially veganism would be more efficient with land use, right?
Oh, James. Oh, James. I don't know if I can do this. You're really making me burn up a brain cell.
Okay. Well, if you've got the patience to try and explain, then go for it.
James.
That's not an argument, right? I'm here ready to talk. You're not.
I've already given you two premises of an argument which you haven't
No.
tried.
So that's you're saying that instead of giving us an argument, right? That's an excuse, a dodge. You're fleeing, right? Just give us the argument. I've asked you like 10
James,
times now.
Do you think there's a logically possible world where it's okay to shoot your daughter in the
you
head?
cannot try and say that veganism reduces suffering and then not put a single word to the actual animals, right? Talking about hydroponics and stuff and then not putting a single word to how this is going to affect the animals. What the heck are you talking about? You cannot be serious and expect me to, accept that this is going to reduce suffering when you're not explaining how it's going to reduce suffering. Hello, how you doing? Hello. No? Okay. Okay, we've got Mythos coming up next. And anybody else that wants to join the queue, have a debate, feel free to come up. Hello, Mythos, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
That's the way. So I'm interested in speaking about how you're going to reduce suffering.
No, we don't want to reduce suffering. We want to end suffering, right? It's like you wouldn't reduce slavery. You would end slavery.
That's you've cut me off there.
Are you serious?
Yeah. How are you going to reduce suffering between now and when you can finally extinguish, in your words, all life?
Yeah, I mean, we're more focused on ending the suffering instead of reducing it.
Okay, but doesn't that mean that there's infinite amount of suffering between when you actually...
No, it won't be infinite.
Okay. Why don't the suffering be infinite between now
What makes it infinite? What makes it infinite?
Won't the suffering be infinite between now and when you actually are able to extinguish all life?
I don't think you know what infinite means, right? But yeah, there will be suffering. But if we don't extinguish that suffering, then it will just carry on. So is there going to be suffering? Yeah, that's why we need to do extinction.
Okay.
And look, if we can reduce suffering, then we will. Okay, but realistically, there's not really much way to do that. Just think about wild animals in nature, right? 99% being eaten alive. You cannot really reduce that suffering, not seriously.
So there's no way that you can see in reducing suffering between now and when you extinguish all life.
Well, look, we're not completely close to it, but I don't think it's like the priority. I don't see why you would focus on that. And I don't think it's going to be a very big thing either. Like maybe it will be.
Suffering is suffering. Suffering is suffering, isn't it?
Think about it this way. Should we put resources towards ending suffering or reducing suffering, right? It doesn't really make sense to put resources towards reducing it when those same resources would be better spent on ending it.
Well, that's fine if you actually had an end goal where
Total extinction. Total extinction.
Yeah. But there's absolutely no, like, from everything I've read, you don't actually have a plan to be able to...
Yeah, we do.
And
course we do.
and suffering. No, like you don't. Like you have a concept, you have an idea. There's no plan
So why does that matter?
because beings will continue to suffer until you're actually able to execute your goal.
So we are executing the plan right now, though.
You don't have a plan.
Well, you're just lying. You're just making things up.
Okay, how are you planning to end suffering? To execute.
So I've said this about
your goal.
I've said this a million times. I've said it a million times. You obviously weren't listening. So we're growing the movement until we have enough people to take over the world, start running it ethically, and start to do extinction.
You don't even know if you can actually extinguish life.
And yeah, but how could we know that?
You just said that you had a plan to actually extinguish life.
Right, but there's no 100% guarantee of anything, right? If you think that you need you need God to come down and touch you on the forehead and say, yes, this is going to work 100%, then you would never end up doing anything.
Okay, so what are you? You just said that you are completely confident in actually extinguishing all life.
No.
You did say that. You did say that because
I don't think so.
My point. No, don't interrupt me. My point was that are you?
I mean, look, you're just lying. You're just making things up, right? Look, we are not saying that there is a 100% chance that we can successfully make the entire universe go extinct. We're just saying that we should do our best, right? People are constantly making this completely ridiculous straw man where they say, oh, wow, you're guaranteeing that the entire universe will go completely extinct. No, you want us to say that so that you can argue against that, because that would be irrational. But actually, our position is much more rational than that, and you can't argue against it, so you're creating a fake version, right? The position is simply that we should do our best, do the best extinction, the most vast and thorough extinction, the most scientifically advanced, the most preventative, the best extinction possible. Okay, so there's nothing there that says, oh, we're guaranteeing we can do the whole universe. It's as simple as saying we should do the best that we can, right? And for you to say that's not good enough, doing the best you can isn't good enough, you have to already have 100% guarantee that you can do the whole universe. That would be insane, right? A crazy person would operate that way. A completely insane person would say, I'm not going to help that child across the street because I don't have a 100% omniscience level certainty that it's the right thing to do. You would have to be completely insane to have that standard. And yeah, it's never going to happen. That standard is never going to manifest. Hello, how you doing?
Hi, I don't know if you remember me, but
I do. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I apologize for all the things I did, just by the way, but I want to ask you, would you use nukes if it could eliminate everyone on the world, cause total extinction?
The thing is that we don't think that nukes are actually a good option. They're not very thorough. They don't.
This image here, this is what I found online, and I don't know if it's real or not, but
yeah, let's get a better look at this image.
Is it real? Is it real? Is it real? Is it real?
Let's see. Is it real? Wow. Well, I don't think so. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have done that had I seen the actual image first. Anyway, okay, moving on. We have Chowster in the queue, bringing them up. No, they've ghosted. Okay, as again, we need more volunteers, fresh challengers, fresh blood for the extinction zone. Come in to the extinction zone. Come to the arena of logic and debate, the arena of rationality and reason itself. Can you explain something more logical than working to make sure that nobody suffers? Can you explain something better than, having a fair world, a suffering-free world? Hello, how you doing?
All right, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I was wondering, so do you think all of humankind should be extinct? Like, is
Yeah,
that
animals, humans, everything.
wow? That's a crazy way of thinking. Can I ask
Why?
why?
Why is that crazy?
Well, if humans didn't like to think this, then like you wouldn't be able to like make you wouldn't be able to be alive right now.
Is that more important than ending suffering?
I mean, what do you call suffering? Because I think life is beautiful, and I think a lot of other people could think life is beautiful. And for you to say that, like, oh, everyone's suffering, it's better for.
So that's a classic straw man. We need to give a name to this particular straw man because people are always saying, you say all life is suffering all the time. I've never said that, and yet every single person trying to debate against me will use that straw man. They will say, you think all life is suffering all the time. I've never said that, and actually our position is much more rational and intelligent than that. But it's too intelligent for people to actually deal with, so they rather deal with a fake version of what I'm saying. A version which is less intelligent, a version where I'm saying all life is suffering all the time, which is something you could argue against because it would be irrational to say that, which is why I don't say it.
Okay, sorry, maybe I misheard you there, and
No, it's not that you misheard me, right? It's actually a phenomenon in the brain. It happens to you, it happens to everyone.
okay, I'm sorry, bud. I didn't mean to do that, but I don't know. It's just to think that like everything should be extinct, so everything will be better. It's just like, how'd you know, and how could we possibly know the outcome of everything, quote unquote, would be better if everything would be extinct? And like, I
Well,
don't know.
the thing is that life isn't fair, right? That there is a lot of suffering. There's lives of pure hell. So to have a fair world, it would mean a suffering-free world, right? The suffering isn't fair. To make it fair, there has to be zero suffering, and only total extinction can do that. So it is the right thing to do. It's the only fair thing to do.
But oh man, but then like we speak on fairness. Does fairness really matter that much for everything to be fair? So like if I were to
Yeah. I mean, look, for selfish people, they don't want things to be fair.
no,
But for those that need it, they need it to be fair, right? They need a safe world.
I mean, I don't think it's selfish of me to think not to
You don't think it's selfish to say, yeah, I want the world to be unfair because I enjoy it.
No, I don't want the world to be unfair, nor do I think that the world is fair. Sure, things might happen to you that don't happen to others. Yeah, that's going to happen. But to think, oh, because that's the case, to make it fair, we all must go extinct? No, dude. Some people don't get it. Some people just don't get it as easy as others, and that's when this whole life thing comes into play. That is genuine life, and those moments and those things build a person's life, to pull that
hang on a
whole
minute.
card.
So what types of suffering do you think exist? Do you think it's all just little types of suffering? Like
No, I think there's all sorts of different terrible types of quote unquote suffering out in this world. There's people that are born under the fire of bombs and grenades and tanks. Like
so how is that fair? Why would you support that? Why would you support
now that's not
people?
fair, and I don't support it. But that was the life that person would.
You see, you're talking out of two sides of your mouth.
No. Hold on.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to hold on, right? You're trying to have your cake and eat it. People are always trying to do this, okay? They're always saying, I don't think suffering is acceptable. I think, a life of pure hell, children dying horrifically, I think that's unacceptable. And then they'll say, but we should accept it because life is great. So they really want to have their cake and eat it. They want to be the ultimate hypocrites and say, yeah, you're right, extreme suffering, that's unacceptable. We cannot accept that. But I accept it anyway, right? And it's like, you can't say it's unacceptable and then say, I accept it. You can't. And they do that because they have this crazy conflict where part of them knows that, yeah, it is unacceptable, but the animalistic nature in them, it accepts it, right? So, yeah, look, child abuse, lives of pure hell, that's unacceptable, but we shouldn't end it. But then it's not unacceptable, is it? Right? You can't say it's unacceptable and say I accept it. You cannot have your cake and eat it. That is pure hypocrisy. Okay, moving on. Hello, how you doing?
Hey, pretty decent. How's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, to speak on, the subject at hand, that could be cognitive dissonance, what homie that just was on the live,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Cognitive dissonance is like fundamental and essential for the human psychology.
definitely. And it's like, it's cool to understand that, like humans all have different perspectives based on, to me, in my personal experience, spiritual evolution, not to say one person is more evolved than the other, but it's just like, I don't know. This is why I like to talk to people, because maybe somebody else can help me explain it a bit further, just based on the awareness that you have of the nature of the unnatural that we're in, based on what you're saying. Forceful total extinction of all life is the only right thing to do to end all suffering. I agree wholeheartedly with that, based off of where I'm at in my spiritual journey or evolution, based off of the spiritual epiphanies that I had about the truth of human nature and the nature of the unnatural that we're currently in. The trees that we look at are not trees that once were here on earth. The water that we,
The thing
drink,
is,
the water that we swim in,
look,
all of that.
look, I hear what you're saying. I know where you're coming from. But the problem is that as great as the world can be, you cannot allow it to corrupt you. You cannot allow it to make you ignore and allow and forget about all of the suffering in the world. Right? It's like a heroin addict. Instead of helping their child, they're just taking the drugs. Right? Saying that life is beautiful and that we shouldn't care if anybody suffers is doing the same thing. It's being incredibly irresponsible.
Yep, definitely. Even if I wasn't so-called suffering, I mean, it's just really, I won't say levels, but it's all one thing, suffering is all one thing. Excessive pride, you see what I'm saying? Attaching
No,
to,
it's not about that. That's a misconception, right? Most suffering is actually happening in the wild, in nature, with animals starving to death, eating each other alive. So over 99% of the population of our planet is animals, and they suffer the worst. So humans suffer as well, but it's not always caused by ego or pride or by other bad people, right? If you get terminal cancer as a baby, you can't blame that on ego and pride or being a bad person, right? So innocent children and animals are falling victim to extreme suffering, and it's a delusion to think otherwise or to think that it's acceptable.
so I guess my question would be, what things do you factor into those things? Like you saying a baby, it being, I don't know, I don't want to say innocent and having to deal with that stuff, but yeah, in a sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, nobody deserves to suffer, and it's not acceptable, right? Do you think that a life of pure hell, pure pain is acceptable? Right? Would you want to live the worst life ever lived with the most pain ever experienced?
No, can't say I would.
Right. So nobody should have to go through that. It's not acceptable. We cannot accept it, and therefore we have to make sure it doesn't happen. Right? Most people, they think it is acceptable that for an innocent child or person or animal to be forced into the most pain ever experienced by any life form ever, right? Because that's going to happen at some point. They think it's acceptable that a life of pure torture can be accepted. I would say no, it cannot be accepted.
By the person that is somewhat of a, victim to this suffering, I guess you would say.
Hey, what?
So like they shouldn't accept it. You saying a person that is suffering, they shouldn't accept that they're suffering, or us as a collective?
We shouldn't accept that they should suffer, right? We shouldn't allow suffering to carry on. We should put an end to all suffering.
Oh, okay. When you say we, you're talking about humanity.
We should be
But
good people.
if
We should do the
there's
right thing.
okay,
We should
so
unite
is this
behind
like
ending suffering.
you don't believe that it essentially exists, or you believe that people are suffering, but that it's up to humanity to correct this?
Yeah, it's up to us to correct it, to carry out total extinction of animals, humanity itself, and all life, so that nobody is being born, nobody is suffering again, nobody is being forced into a life of extreme pain.
Okay, I'm trying to get a better perspective on what this live, because I see it says forceful total extinction. That's what I was wondering about pro-extinction. How is that? How does like is
Yeah, so
what's the process to
if
that?
there is no life, then there will be no suffering. Basically.
So you think that nature is going to do this extinction, or is it humans are also a part of this?
We have to carry it out in an intelligent and organized way. We can't just leave it to nature.
Okay, so what would your how would you describe what extinction is, so I could get
So the definition of extinction is like when a species ceases to exist, right? The last one has died out. The species goes extinct. It stops existing.
Okay, and what does pro-extinct mean to you?
So we're a
Like
movement.
what would you do in that movement to help this process of
So
extinction?
we are growing the movement with activism until we have enough people to take over the world, start running it ethically, and carry out extinction in an organized way. So we would start with animals and researching the best extinction, the most thorough one that we can do, the most vast one that we can do. So trying to do the best extinction possible.
Okay, because this is interesting because I've never heard nobody, express extinction in a way. You typically get the Bible perspective as like nature is going to make pretty much autocorrect what's going on here on Earth and everything will cease to be. When people think of extinct, I feel like they automatically just think of everything just dying and being destroyed by nature.
Yeah, but removing life isn't very thorough, right? That's the easy part. Making sure it never comes back, preventing life from developing, that's the more important part, basically. To do a proper job instead of rushing it. So yeah, we will be making sure that every last human is put to sleep, making sure that they cannot keep reproducing and causing more suffering. And we'll be doing this to every animal as well. And we won't let anybody get away. We won't let them escape. We will have to make sure that the species goes completely extinct.
Okay, yeah, this is interesting. I've never heard a human, have because I always thought, not to say that we are nature too. So this is why I'm trying to, have you elaborate on the subject because we are a part of nature. So it's like.
Yeah, but we should be more than just animals, right? We shouldn't allow suffering and just say, oh, I'm just an animal, so let me act like an animal. No, let's be better than that. Let's be more than that. Let's be again.
Yeah, because a lot of things could tie into this. Like maybe you could give me a better, because I've never heard of this movement or this ideology, but veganism probably can tie into this somehow, or fasting and all of this stuff.
You might think so, but it's much more complicated than that. And actually, veganism causes more suffering at the minute.
Okay. To nature.
Yeah, exactly. So veganism is extremely efficient with the amount of space and land it uses. It doesn't use much land. And so that gives more land, more forests to wild animals. 100 quintillion wild animals die painfully each year, whereas only 100 billion animals are farmed each year. So it's like a tiny, tiny fraction. And if you wipe out all of the forests and replace them with animal agriculture and farming animals, then yeah, you massively reduce the population down to a millionth of what it used to be. And wild animals actually suffer worse. So veganism just says, yeah, let's protect the farmed animals, but let's have more wild animals, many more wild animals. And most people think that's a good thing, right? People say, yeah, more forests, that's a good thing. More wild animals, that's a good thing. But that causes more suffering, much more suffering, like way worse, way more suffering. the number of wild animals that die each year in the world is a 1 followed by 20 zeros, right? It's 100 quintillion. It's such a big number compared to the 100 billion farmed animals. So it just dwarfs them, and they have worse conditions. They're being chased, hunted, eaten alive. They have no food, no medicine, no shelter. So farmed animals have all of these things, right? They get euthanasia, medicine, shelter, safety, food. They're not in fear constantly. So yeah, wild animals have it worse, with worse suffering, and their numbers are just insanely much, massively more than farmed animals.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah, I
Game
appreciate.
Noodles, thank you for coming up. We're going to move on, but you can read and learn more on our website, proextinction.com. The link is on my profile. And if anybody wants to read about how veganism causes more suffering, then you can actually see all of the data and behind this, right? The actual evidence for it. So if you go on our website, proextinction.com, and you go to the full FAQ and scroll down to question 34, then you will find all of the answers. It's the only question that we have on the FAQ that has lots of charts and graphs and loads of stuff like that. So it's easy to find. Hello, how are you doing?
Hello, James. I have a question. So let's say you got your point around, everyone is dead, and me and my family are the last one. So what you gonna do? You gonna shoot?
Yeah.
Man, you crazy, you know that?
Why? I mean, look, what's wrong with that? The thing is, if we don't put them to sleep, all life, right? Any life, right? If we don't do total extinction, if we don't correct the problem of life existing, then it will suffer horrifically in unacceptable ways. So, the people that want to live and want to keep living, they're going to end up begging for death, wishing they'd never been born. They're going to end up potentially experiencing the most pain that has ever been experienced, the worst life that has ever been lived. So that's kind of the way that you have to start understanding it. When we're talking about infinite danger, infinite potential, and risk of extreme suffering, like unlimited, right? You just have to think that, all of these people that want to keep living, how dare you make them go extinct? If we don't do it, then they could potentially, go on to live the worst life ever lived with no escape, right? They could end up with chronic pain, brain damage, paralysis, no access to euthanasia. They could be getting tortured by psychopaths. They could be essentially trapped in hell for an extremely long time, decades, right? So basically, when it comes down to should we allow people to continue living? Should we allow them to make their own decision if they want to keep living? The thing is, if we give them that choice, then they will choose to live, and some of them will potentially end up trapped in a life of pure hell, facing extreme suffering, begging for death, wishing they'd never been born, and that's not acceptable. So whereas most people say, if people want to live, let them live, and they don't care if they end up suffering as a result. So, again, if you allow life to live, it will suffer in an unacceptable way. Now, for most people, there's no amount of cruelty, no amount of pain that they would ever say is unacceptable. So, an innocent person trapped in a life of pure hell for 50 years, begging for death, screaming all day, every day, in just absolute nightmare levels of pain and suffering for their entire life, all day, every day, for their entire life, right? Obviously, that's unacceptable. But for most people, it is acceptable, whereas it really shouldn't be, right? Why would you be okay with somebody being trapped in a life of extreme hell? Why would you be okay with somebody living the worst life ever lived with the most pain ever experienced, right? The worst pain, the worst life, the most suffering ever experienced, the most miserable, horrific nightmare of a life, okay? And you can say, well, you know, what's the chance of that happening? There is a chance, okay? There's a massive chance. So again, if you just allow everyone to live and make extinction optional, then some of them will potentially be trapped in a life of extreme hell. So we care about them too much to let that happen, right? Even if they want to risk it, and the thing is that they don't actually understand the risk fully. That's really why, you know, that's part of the reason why we have to make the decision for them. You know, the correct and rational decision is to prefer the safety of non-existence over the infinite danger, right? Do you really want to be trapped in a life of pure hell for 50 years? Would you? Right? Do you want to live the worst life ever lived, with the most pain ever experienced? Do you want to live, you know, come on, like, look, we all have this kind of mechanic in our brain that trivializes it, downplays it, romanticizes it, fantasizes it, okay? But would you really want to live the worst life ever lived, okay? And my point is that it's hard for people to take this seriously. When they try and think about it, their brain essentially just doesn't let them. And as a result, they just don't end up taking the idea seriously. They're not able to engage with it, to think about it. But yeah, it should be obvious that faced with the potential for living, you know, again, anybody here, any one of us could go on tomorrow to have an accident or some situation where, yeah, it makes it so that you end up being in the worst life ever lived, with the most excruciating pain ever felt, begging for death with no help, no escape, you know, chronic pain, brain damage, mental illness, paralysis, maybe you're a quadriplegic. So would you want to be trapped in a life of pure hell for the rest of your life? Now, the answer should be absolutely no, of course not. And so why should we allow anyone to make the wrong decision? Right? Why should we allow anyone to say, yeah, I do want to risk being trapped in hell just for a tiny little bit of life? No, the thing is that they're not thinking about it correctly. They're not able to think about it correctly. And we know this scientifically, right? So we really shouldn't allow people to make this decision, because essentially they will make the wrong decision, right? And yeah, it is objectively the wrong decision, okay? It's not... You can't say, well, you know, the decision is different for everyone, because the thing is that there is a level of pain and suffering that will make your life not worth living and not worth having been born. So the thing is that you could have the best life ever lived, and you could be, you know, 40 years old, you've got a family, friends, you've got the best life, you've got no health problems, and you could say, yeah, this is great. Why would I want extinction? And then something terrible happens and you end up living the worst life ever lived, and it's so bad that your entire 40 years of a happy life, that doesn't matter anymore to you, right? You're thinking now, you know what, that's not worth it. The pain and misery that I'm going through now is so bad that even the good life I had before, I still would choose not to be born, right? I wouldn't do it again. I would choose non-existence. So you can say, oh, that's not going to happen, and you know, that's mental, you know, that's different for everyone, and we should leave people to make that choice. But you are essentially just deluding yourself into thinking that there isn't amount of pain, there isn't an amount of suffering that can make you wish you'd never been born. But there is, right? There absolutely is. And so you can fool yourself into thinking that no, that should be my decision. You know, I'll be fine. The suffering won't be that bad. I'm mentally strong. All of these things can be completely wiped out by the severity of the suffering. So there is absolutely a level of pain and suffering that will make all of those things where you think it's okay false, right? And if you don't understand that, then you're just not understanding how bad suffering can be. You don't realize how bad pain and excruciating misery and suffering, extreme suffering, can be. So, you know, that's part of the problem. People have evolved to not be able to think about suffering properly, to not be able to think about their own safety in a responsible way. Because if they did, then they would prefer the safety of non-existence, right? So nature couldn't have that. Reproduction couldn't have that. All right, let's move on. We've got plenty of people in the queue. Let's get some more debates going. All right, we have Mr. Bin coming up next. On to the extinction zone. Okay, not loading. Let's see who else we got. We've got Debaterman 9000. That could be good. All right, the queue is kind of getting a bit thin, so anybody else that wants to join and debate, feel free to get yourself in the queue now. Hunter, hello, how you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Great.
So I was wondering, for you, it seems like the big thing is it's the only right thing to do. But like, why would you think that this is a thing you even can talk about as a right? Like,
Yeah.
where do you get the idea of a moral claim?
Yeah, so it's essentially like the conclusion of ethics, right? Which is that suffering and extreme suffering is unacceptable. So the thing is that you either have a zero tolerance policy on extreme suffering, or you allow infinite suffering. You either care that suffering exists or you don't care. And this is really the correct position, that suffering is unacceptable and that we can't allow it anymore.
So why would suffering be unacceptable to you?
Yeah, because if you actually care about life and you empathize with them, then, you know, somebody being tortured that you care about is going to be unacceptable, right?
It's not preferable, but it's not unacceptable. Everyone has to go through suffering. It's ironic because your whole worldview would be to that the kindest thing you can do is to end everybody.
Well, yeah, but
So you're making a moral claim that you think the best thing you can do is decide that rather than suffer, you should just end it all.
well, why should anybody have to suffer, right? It's not a good thing to have extreme suffering. It's cruel. It's unfair. It's not acceptable.
Why isn't suffering good in your view?
Well, I mean, why isn't child abuse good? Well, because it causes like pain, misery, right? Suffering. Right? Do you not understand that child abuse is
That's
bad?
just what it is, though. It's not telling you whether or not it's actually a good or bad thing. That's what I'm saying. So, like, it is
Well,
true that
obvious,
you'd
isn't it?
be causing pain, but why would pain be actually morally wrong or good? Because the claim you're making is that you want to end the entire universe.
Yeah,
essentially.
because if you care about life, then you end up caring if it suffers, right? You know, if your friend is suffering, you would care, right? Well, I don't know if you would, but usually that's
I would, but I can tell you my paradigm real quickly. But I'm a Christian, and the way that they look at suffering is that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, hope, right? So perseverance
so
and
for example,
things that are
if-
beneficial.
Yeah. So, for example, if an animal is like murdered, like tortured to death by a psychopath, how does that produce anything good?
It would be something the man would be corrupting his soul. I agree that's negative for the person, but
So
I don't know why you
well,
think
what
it could
about
be negative.
what about
Why-
animals?
Where
animals
would you
killing
ground it
people?
being good or evil, though?
Well, okay, what about
I'm
a
saying
baby?
good or bad based off
What about
of God.
what about
but
a baby
every-
getting terminal cancer?
I'd say that is something that wouldn't necessarily even be good or evil. It just is.
So
It
the
is the
baby
fact that
screaming
they
in
have
pain all day, every day, and then dying. That's fine.
The pain and suffering in itself is not evil. It's
So what about
other
child
things
abuse?
that are
What about child abuse? Is that bad then? Because you're saying if a baby is screaming in pain and dies, it's not bad. So doesn't that mean that child abuse?
Well, it
would
is
be
from
okay
my
as well?
worldview. I'm saying I don't know where you could ground it in your worldview that anything would be good or bad. Is what I'm saying.
Well, that's irrelevant, right? So
Well,
you're
of course it's not, because
Well,
you're
it
making
is.
a claim
It
that you
is.
should end the whole universe, but you can't even ground where an ought comes from.
well, we don't need to ground it, right? We
And
just
your
need
whole
people-
ought. Well, you're making an ought claim by saying only right. When you use the right thing to do,
Yeah,
it
if you
implies
care
that
about
there's
life,
morals.
then making sure it doesn't suffer is the only right thing to do.
but you can't make an ought claim, so you can't make that claim. That's the critique I'm making.
No, I can. If you care about life, then yeah, you should care that if it suffers or not.
So, like, I agree that suffering is a thing and that life is a thing, but how can you get that those two being something equates to you ought to end it therefore?
So, okay, think about it this way. If you saw somebody raping a child violently, would you say, yeah, I should call the police or not? Or would you say, I could call the police, but first I need to, dive into the philosophy of whether or not I ought to do this?
I wouldn't say it would be like wrong to think about it, but of course you should call the police. Of course you should.
Okay, so it's the same thing. It's obvious, right? It's obvious. So
well, it's not.
Child abuse
Well,
is
you're
wrong.
making it seem like it's obvious that we should end the whole universe, but there's not even grounding for your position. Is what I'm saying.
Well, you're not letting me, right? You're playing word games instead. So yeah, if you care
because
about
I'm trying
life,
to say you're making an ought claim with the right. You have to change your prompt.
Yeah. So if you care about life, then yeah, you'll actually care about the suffering and try and empathize with it and try and understand how bad it is. Most people don't do that, right? So, most people are just trying to exploit animals and to pretend that they don't suffer, for example, right? So most people are not trying to explore the truth of suffering, how bad people and animals have it. They're just trying to lie and hide from these truths so that they can keep being selfish, right?
I think I agree with that part. I do agree with you there.
Yeah, and Christians do the exact same thing, right? They say, yes, suffering is good for you. A child gets raped to death. Yeah, that's good for you. So, you can't
not
say...
every type
you
of
can't,
suffering is the same thing. It doesn't produce anything in the person because it's just painful to them. The whole point of suffering is like when there's hardship on you, obviously. But we wouldn't argue that's a good thing to do. We're just saying despite the bad things, you still can have something beneficial.
Look, Hunter, you're deluding yourself, right? We live in an ocean of extreme suffering and torture, and you're ignoring all of it and saying, suffering is such a great thing, we can grow from it, ignoring the fact that most suffering you don't grow from. You just get tortured to death.
I think just about all of it is. I think if you don't have like a mind yet, like for sure, if you're talking about like an infant or something, how could they even process a way to reflect on said suffering, right?
So
hardship.
if someone rapes a baby to death, you don't care?
No, of course I care because it's wrong in God's eyes. But you wouldn't have a way to say it was actually right or wrong. That's what I'm saying. Is like
you've just said the baby.
No, I
surely
think that
doesn't
they
suffer.
don't have the ability to self-reflect and grow from it in character. Was what I said. That's not the same thing as it being good or bad. Of course, it's still evil.
Right. So if you're 20 years old and now you've got a mind, and then you get terminal cancer, how do you grow from that?
Yeah, because it lets you have a heart posture towards your suffering and whether or not you let it be something that
you can grow from.
Of course, you can grow from suffering.
Yeah. Yes. So you die and then you grow.
Undeniably.
So you die and then you grow. Yeah.
No, even in this lifetime, before you die, you can grow.
Hunter, you've been brainwashed into just justifying any suffering. Somebody rapes a baby, you say, it probably didn't feel it. Or you know what, that suffering's going to help it grow. So this is like the same thing that slave owners would say. They would say, right, the slavery is helping the slaves to grow, right? Every time I whip them, they're learning a lesson, right? They're learning. Every time I whip that slave, right? Fucking slave, they're learning, right? It's good for them. It's good for them. It's helping them grow. It's good for them. It's helping them grow. So look, child abuse doesn't help you grow. Extreme suffering doesn't help you grow. Terminal cancer doesn't help you grow. And, you've got all of this extreme torture. You've got people literally murdering babies, murdering children, murdering animals. You've got people with pure depression, committing suicide, right? And the idea that this is helping them grow is a fucking joke, right? So literally all of the bad stuff in the world, he thinks it's good, right? He thinks it's actually good because it helps you grow. So if that's not pure evil, I don't know what it is, right? You've got to start realizing, like, all of the evil, terrible stuff in the world, they're saying it's good, right? This is just completely upside down. It's pure cope. It's pure delusion. They're gaslighting themselves, basically, and trying to gaslight other people. Hello, how you doing?
Hey, I just have a question since I'm like 100% with what you're saying, but isn't there a better way to advertise this and bring it to people's attention? Because there's always going to be higher ups that are controlling us. I don't think we're going to be able to achieve total extinction without maybe somebody more in control being aware of this situation.
Yeah, having a random person in government be aware is not going to change anything, really. So it's a grassroots movement. We're getting people from around the world, activists, to join the movement and to form, the core of the membership. And that's how we're realistically going to do it from the ground up, really.
So can you explain to me like the steps that we're taking to achieve this, and how long do you think it will take?
Yeah, so we are doing activism. We have around 100 people making videos, doing debate streams, doing street protests and street events with, placards and everything. And we're growing the movement, asking people to join and to also help grow the movement until we do have enough people to make extinction possible. But we don't know how long that's going to take. We don't know how many people it's going to require. It's very difficult to actually know that or to be able to predict it. So we just have to do our best and do everything that we can.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you for coming up. And yeah, we've got more people in the queue. Let's keep on rolling. And we're getting some good gifts today. So thank you, everybody. Shout out to V-Speaks, Cora. Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, hello. So I have a question.
Yes.
Are you funded by Israel?
No. I have
No,
a question
because
for you.
we
Why do you think
because
Israel
we
is funding extinction? A lot of people ask this
because you
question.
because you're a white person and you're advocating for this.
Okay, well, I don't think there are any Israeli people advocating for extinction. Well, actually, tell a lie. We do
No,
have a couple of
they
Israeli
want the weakening
activists.
of the white race. They want the weakening of the white race.
So, wait, what? Say again?
I said they want the weakening of the white race.
Okay, well, we don't want the weakening of the white race. We want animal extinction, human extinction, universe-wide extinction, right? It's not about genocide like that. It's about making sure that nobody has to suffer.
No, you're definitely funded by Israel.
It sounds like you've fallen into you've fallen for those racist videos, right? Lots of people are hating on Jewish people, hating on Israelis. But it's like it's the oldest trick in the book, right? To trick people into thinking that your enemy is some, impoverished, poor person who has dark skin or a different color of skin. Like, it's just crazy. Jesus, how you doing?
How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Show us the way. Show us some love, Jesus. Preach.
Yeah, I think you're a weirdo, bro. You need to start with killing yourself, yeah?
Hallelujah.
Why did you
Jesus,
kill
you-
yourself?
you
Someone
were not
asked you about...
Jesus was not this mean last time I had him on the stream. I was expecting him to be kind of nice, actually. So I must have said something to piss Jesus off. Yeah, that's a shame, but it happens. Okay, we need more volunteers for the queue. We need more people to debate. Yeah, just be nice. Don Rizzler, hello.
Oh, Don Rizzler's here. Don Rizzler's here. Yes, James. How are you doing? Oh, sorry. I was just telling someone to shut the back door. Damn.
How's your suffering today?
No, I'm not suffering. I'm just out in my back garden, just enjoying the sun. Obviously, because I get bitches on my dick, unlike you, James.
Yeah, I mean, hallelujah.
Is this why you're suffering? Like, I know you said. Oh, wait, James. Anyway, you were saying earlier that you'd use your girlfriend's feet, like dead body, sorry, and you'd use it as a pocket pussy,
you fucking dirty bastard.
because she's quite fit. That's what you said, James.
I'm sure many would be tempted. Okay, moving on. We've got Bubbles next. Coming up onto the stage, Mrs. Bubbles. Hello.
Hey, how is it?
How you doing?
Doing well. I'm having a very hard time understanding your perspective, and that's because, for one, I mean, I'm not saying there isn't suffering. There obviously is. I think all of us go through it, but I think some people genuinely have the will to leave, and even those that are suffering, right? Like within the group of people that are suffering, others would may choose to leave. Like you'll have a person that goes through certain things and still, even if they were given an option to unalive, would still choose to leave. So I'm having a hard time understanding why that has to be like a mass extinction, because then it takes away other people's will to leave.
Yeah, so unfortunately there's a dynamic right now where people think that as long as somebody else is happy, then it makes it acceptable for somebody to live a terrible life, right? Somebody having the worst life ever, right? If somebody has the worst life ever lived, with the most pain ever felt, the worst suffering ever, right? People like yourself think that that's just magically okay now. It doesn't matter anymore as long as somebody else is happy. So it doesn't work like that. And that's a mentality of allowing infinite cruelty, not caring about suffering, just causing it, allowing it, ignoring it, not caring how much suffering there is. And it literally just is a mentality of just being irresponsible, right? Saying we don't care if anybody suffers, we don't care if children get abused.
I think, look, I do think you're onto something, but not, at least not to the point that you are proposing. I think I would.
The thing is, you think that
accept,
suffering is acceptable, right? You think that somebody being
no,
forced
no, no,
into
no.
the
I
worst
would
life
accept
ever
if
lived
you said,
is acceptable.
oh, yeah, I would. I think it would be more reasonable to say that people who don't want to suffer and they don't want to live anymore should be given, like, you know, a way to.
So we make them
leave
suffer
themselves.
and then kill them.
So you want to kill everybody else because another person is suffering? Is that a better alternative?
Well, yeah, because then nobody has to suffer, right? It's not fair for there to be extreme suffering, and it's not acceptable.
So you would kill someone because, I don't know. I mean, if I'm the one going through
think of
the
it this way.
suffering and I want to
Yeah.
leave,
Look, think of it this way, right? Think of life as a party boat, right? And then you have loads of people being tortured to death on the party boat. And instead of, stopping the boat and trying to stop all of the torture going on the boat, you're saying, who cares if there's torture and there's murder going on and there's psychopaths raping children on the boat? Let's just keep sailing. Who cares about them? I'm having a good time. Just look forward and look at the beautiful sky.
well, I guess we reached that point where we won't agree. So let me just say, I hear your views. I disagree, but I respect your views.
Okay, thank you, Bubbles. And I would say, as I often say, if you have no counter argument, then you should consider that I'm right, right? And look, this happens very often, extremely often, right? This is not a one-off thing. This is a common psychological phenomenon where people say, I really have nothing I can possibly say to disagree, but I still disagree and I don't know why. And so this makes perfect sense, and this fits perfectly into everything I've been saying, right? Which is that people have an evolutionary problem in the brain which prevents them from being rational. It prevents them from thinking in a correct way. And part of that is that, it will make them disagree with things and have absolutely no idea why they disagree with it. And so the reason why they disagree is not because there's a good reason to disagree. It's because there are effectively structures in the brain which mimic disagreeing with these ideas, essentially. And so those structures, that disagreement is, you're born with it. Okay, so you are born with those incorrect opinions, incorrect understandings, and incorrect mentalities and perspectives. So you don't actually learn them. they're actually, you're born with them. And so these crazy thoughts that people have, that you see all the time on my show, right? Lots of people saying lots of crazy, like completely insane things. These are reflections of essentially structures in the brain which protect the life form from essentially straying from the natural priorities of nature, survival and reproduction. So nature and evolution fortified those priorities, and anything that goes against them will be, forcefully stopped, essentially. It will be attacked. And part of that attack results in them saying stupid things and thinking that it's intelligent. It essentially makes them disagree for no good reason, right? Without an actual logical reason. So that disagreement is like a structure in the brain, and then the reason for the disagreement will be produced when needed and in the context, right? So that it sounds somewhat like it might make sense. But really, it will never make sense because it can't. It's literally based on not making sense. Like it's like intentionally doesn't make sense. Okay, moving on. We've got Ivory Day 12 coming up next. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, I hope you can't see me because I look a mess.
I can't see you now.
Okay, good. Listen, my question is, how do you define suffering?
Like negative experiences.
For example?
For example,
it's such a broad idea. It's so broad. I mean, give me your...
The thing is, I just don't know why we need to define it, right? The only reason you would need to define it is if you're trying to, play word games and...
No, I'm not. Okay, for example, my idea of suffering, in other words, before I, quote, debate with you, we have to start with a very base, like a starting point. I have to be clear about what you're...
I feel like everyone knows what suffering is, though. I never understand the people that
like lack of food might be suffering, or it might not be.
I don't, in my entire, 13 months as an extinctionist, I don't think I've ever asked anybody the definition of suffering. It's just completely unnecessary.
Okay, but just please try to give me a simple definition, please. It's not that difficult.
Look, we could just Google it, right?
No, I don't want to. Just tell me your idea, please. I'm actually saying.
I already did.
Okay. Well, you tell me. Never. No. Okay. Well, the idea, suffering is different. One person's suffering may be different than some other person's suffering. Like it could be lack of food, lack of shelter, lack of your basic needs. Okay, yeah, maybe we'll just define that as suffering. Can we agree on that?
People suffer differently. Yeah, that's just obvious.
So if we start with the basis that suffering from the beginning is different for different people, then your idea of
that doesn't make it more acceptable. That doesn't, just because children get abused in different ways doesn't mean that child abuse is now okay.
Okay, so now you're giving me an example of suffering.
I think that if you really need examples, then you're not living on planet Earth, right?
No, my premise for asking you is to see if we're on the same, and believe me, I do understand. I could assume that I understand what you're talking about, but in order to quote debate you, I have to understand what your idea of suffering is and that we're on the same page of suffering. Because honestly, yes, we have a general idea of what suffering is.
All right, look, philosophy has obviously rotted your brain until it's fallen out of your ears, right? Look, she just spent 5 minutes talking about the definition of suffering and nobody learned anything, right? The conversation was not advanced in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it went backwards, basically. So, as usual, philosophy is bad for you. I'm not joking. It will rot your brain. It will abstract you out of reality onto a different planet, right? Where you're not able to have an intelligent conversation anymore. It effectively gives you a mental disability, right? To where you just speak pure gibberish and nonsense. Alex, you're back.
James, my brother.
Yeah, what have you got for us today?
Sorry, mate, what did you say?
Yeah, what have you got for us?
I've got a question.
Okay.
You think a skinny little ding like you will be able to wipe anything more than a fucking group of ants out, mate?
I'm ready. I'm ready for extinction.
This guy, bro, you're not going to be able to wipe this out, bro.
Yeah, look, we're going to have, look, when we are doing human extinction and forcefully carrying it out, which we will be, right? There could be people like Alex, right? There could be some violent people that, yeah, there could be a war, there could be a civil war, there could be people like Alex that, do horrible things and commit acts of violence in order to preserve suffering continuing. So that's possible, and we accept it. But, that's just one obstacle of many, one problem to solve, just like anything else. Hello, how you doing?
Yo, hello.
Hello.
So how are you doing, man?
Yeah,
I am doing fine in my own way.
Great, great. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so I want to tell you that I am a Nazi. So and you basically want extinction of everyone.
Ah, right. He actually did have the Nazi symbol in his profile. So he's a real Nazi. Or he's trolling and trying to make...
James, my friend, it took
MB.
40 roses to get here. It's the longest wait I've had as well. It's crazy. Terrible service. Like, I expect some sort of like prioritizing of me when I'm giving you.
Okay,
40,
you know what? I'll give you
40
priority
pence.
right now. I'll give you a special, right, just to make it... There you go. So, how can I help you, darling?
Right. No Diddy first, James. First of all. James, stop! You're leaving me speechless. Can we be serious and have a real discussion this time? Can we take?
You'd like
can we
some
take-
extinction?
Well, the extinction stuff. So I've got a question anyway.
Would you let me make you
No,
extinct?
do you know how you?
What
try
if
and
I'm the
say
last
everyone's-
thing you
everyone's-
see before extinction?
I hope you try and like make me go extinct. You'd be the first person I look for. I'd like end you.
Yeah, this will be the last thing you see.
James. Right, James. So, like, do you know your girlfriend? Do you want her to go and perish as well?
I wouldn't want to see her suffer,
So, like, anyway, about suffering, how do you suffer? Like, give me some examples of how you're suffering in your life if you want to, like, end it so bad.
Yeah, I get lots of people join the stream and ask silly questions and
No, I'm not asking silly questions. I'm just asking curiosities of mine because
Okay, fair enough. All right,
it's obviously it's a very odd subject for me that someone would want everything to go extinct. But I think it's impossible for you of all things to be the cause of extinction, James. I think it will take a lot longer.
Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted.
That's fine. But like, how are you going to destroy the Earth or destroy any form of life on this Earth?
We don't know yet, right?
We don't know. So you're basing your whole movement of so far hypotheticals, and you still try and prove your point right, just because everyone suffers. But like I say every time I join this live, for good to exist, bad must exist as well, James. And that is very unfortunate because there is some disgusting people in this world, like you, obviously.
So let me ask you a question. Just one. Okay.
Right. Let's see. You're not going to remove me after I give some answer to your question, am I?
Probably.
See the eye roll.
Okay.
The eye roll
So
says it.
you're saying that for good to exist, bad has to exist, right? So are there any sort of limits on this? Any sort of restrictions? For example, you support suffering existing as long as happiness exists.
James, your
are there
girlfriend
any rules on
important?
this? So are there any rules on this? For example,
Rules on what?
On allowing suffering, right? So would you allow a child abuser to have the happiness and joy as long as...
James, this is why we have laws. Can I just give a shout out to Alex? He said you were sub 3. Yeah, that's it. So myself.
Yeah, but laws don't really make a difference, right? So, you can have laws against child abuse, it doesn't stop it. So, having laws is just completely ineffectual, right? How many children are being abused by their family right now, right? Is the law helping them? No, absolutely not, right? The law isn't helping them at all. How many children are going to be murdered by, a family friend or a family member after being abused, right? Is that okay? No, it shouldn't be. So I really wanted him to just give some sort of
James.
some sort of rules on it, right? He's saying that happiness has to exist even if there's suffering. So are there any rules? And his answer was, well, we have a justice system. So again, you have to start seeing all of the ways in this can go wrong and all of the sort of what this allows for, right? So if you're saying, well, we have a justice system, then yeah, you're allowing families to abuse their children to death. Maybe they'll get arrested afterwards. Maybe not. So again, you are allowing it, right? And you can't say that, oh, we're not allowing child abuse, we're not allowing animal abuse or any suffering. We're just allowing it to happen, but we're saying that it's against the rules, right? That's like trying to have your cake and eat it, right? You trying to say, yeah, extreme suffering, that's unacceptable, but we're not going to stop it, right? We might stop it a little bit, but not as much as we could do. Well, then it's acceptable to you. You don't care about it. All right, so in the queue right now, we have a Nazi, we have Alex, and we also have another troll. So we have 3 trolls in the queue. If anybody else wants to join up, have an interesting conversation, an intelligent debate, then that would be a breath of fresh air, to be honest. You do struggle to find intelligent people to talk to. I mean, look, when I'm scrolling through TikTok and I'm watching the streams and the videos, most of the time I'm thinking, good God, like, this is just shockingly boring. Richard, hello, how you doing? Hello. Okay, you've joined by accident, perhaps. I'll kick you out. Some people do join by accident. Okay, so we have nobody in the queue right now, and let's I'll tell you what we'll do. The next person that comes in for a debate, we will try and push the debates as far as we can. So I will try not to kick them, because people are always complaining that I kick people too soon. So on the next one, we'll try not to kick them, and we'll try to let the debate go on longer and see if that satisfies people. Hello, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. You'll have to stay on the screen, otherwise we won't be able to hear you. So if you're trying to go onto a different app or something...
I wasn't meaning to, it was an accident. Misclick.
No problem.
Hey, so yeah, I mean, obviously I disagree with the very notions, but I did want to ask, when you say suffering, I mean, do you mean intended suffering or just suffering in general?
In general.
So like, the suffering of illness, right? Like where no one intends on it.
There's lots of types. So yeah, all suffering.
Okay. I mean, so I was kind of thinking about your whole premise of like everyone getting on board with it.
We don't need everyone to be on board. We're not expecting 100% agreement.
Well, yeah, not 100, but like a predominant, like,
And no, it doesn't have to be predominant either. Most big changes and societal changes throughout history were done with a very small minority. So usually it's only like 1% or less of the population that will actually go into the streets and try and change things.
But I mean, a lot of your arguments do seem though about like intended suffering. So like harm to children, harm to women.
Well, forget about that, right? It's about all suffering.
Right.
And most suffering is not caused by humans.
Right. I just don't understand how like extinction would be a solution to something like the common cold or
Well,
illness.
it's not about the common cold.
Well, but that's just a form of suffering that we both agreed was on the list, right?
Yeah, but okay, then it does solve that, right? Nobody will have to suffer through the common cold ever again.
But do you not see it like as an extreme measure to, I mean, we could just focus on healthcare, right?
Well, again, healthcare, you're limiting, you're basically straw manning this to just one single issue, right?
Because I do think like the other issues, like the larger ones, are more cultural. The only reason I'm not talking about those.
Most suffering is in nature, right? With wild animals eating each other. It's not cultural.
Oh, okay. So with humans, I guess, but yeah, I mean, so you're thinking extinction of all life.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, it just seems rather extreme. I mean, I do think that's
extreme. The suffering in the world is extreme.
But I mean, it's an intrinsic part of like nature, right? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to make an appeal to nature here, but like you almost can't avoid suffering.
You just did that.
Right, but you can't avoid it.
Well, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't say it would be wrong to appeal to nature, but it's natural.
No, I'm saying I'm not trying to make an appeal to nature as in like the fallacy of it.
Then don't.
But that would be.
Then
but that's just the fallacy, though, right?
Like just don't say nature is magic, right? It's as simple as that.
But it's within like an animal's nature to consume other things, right? Like.
So if it's within a rapist's nature to abuse children, does that make it okay?
No.
So then you're making an appeal to nature again. It will never go well for you. I recommend you don't do it.
Right.
Right? People are all saying that's just nature, that's life. It's like saying, well, what does that matter? How is that relevant?
I mean, they don't have any choice in the matter, though, right? Like,
yeah, nobody has a choice, which is why it's one of the reasons why it's terrible, right? People are being forced into extreme cruelty without a choice.
Well, like the person who harms children would have a choice, right?
No, he is, programmed by nature to do that.
I mean, I on the level of determinism, right? Like, I understand what you mean, right?
Exactly.
But
exactly.
I mean,
so, there you go.
They have the mental faculty. I mean, obviously,
a lion doesn't have a choice
everything.
to eat a zebra, okay? And also, your audio is shockingly bad.
Is it? I'm sorry. I'm in an empty house, so I don't know if it's an echo or distance.
Yeah.
I mean, is that any better?
That's much better, yeah.
Okay. I mean, it just seems like an extreme measure. I mean,
well, again, suffering is extreme.
But the lack of all life, I think, would be more extreme. No?
Why?
Because there would be no experience had. Like there
so
would be nothing.
What's worse? Extreme suffering existing or no life existing?
I'd probably go with no life.
So no life existing is worse than children being forced to experience the most pain possible.
I mean, that's just one example of suffering, though. Like you're saying, I'm pigeonholing it by going with like sickness
there's loads
and
of
illness.
examples of suffering. So let's just think of all of them.
Right, and certainly those things do occur, but like we have the capacity to eliminate them and remove them without just again cultural change.
No, again, culture has nothing to do with cancer, right? And other types of suffering. So you really are deluding yourself into thinking that the culture causes suffering when it doesn't at all.
Yes, I mean yes, it does because I mean, for instance,
but not significant, not significantly though.
Well, like for instance, like sure.
Look, when you get terminal cancer, it's not because you've prayed to the wrong god or you wore the wrong type of hat. Okay, it's nothing to do with your.
There is a cultural element to that.
So getting cancer depends on your culture.
Not in and of itself, but like for instance, like
this is just a stupid argument, right? This is
no, it's not. Steve Jobs, for instance, right? Like died because he could have received better medical care.
You're victim blaming victims of cancer.
No, but if somebody instead prays to a god rather than go seek medical attention, that's a cultural implication that led to their death, right?
Well, not necessarily, no.
I mean, if they had cancer that was going to kill them unless they received medical care, right? Instead of receiving medical care.
Fantasizing it. You're fantasizing, right? That's never always going to be possible. Right?
I didn't say it was always the case, right?
Right, but you are generalizing it. So that's the problem.
But I'm not generalizing it.
You're generalizing and saying, well, they can just do this. Well, that's not always going to be the case. So
I didn't say they could always do that either.
Well, then don't generalize.
I'm not generalizing. I'm saying there are specific cases where
you're making hasty
where there can be differences being made over time by people of the time.
So you
right?
don't
Like,
think you don't think extreme suffering is unacceptable?
I'm not saying that suffering is good, right? But
So
I am
if
saying
somebody
that
is going to live,
humanity-
if somebody's going to live the worst life, if somebody's going to be forced to live the worst life ever lived, would you, do them the politeness of helping them to not have to be forced into that?
Oh yeah. For instance, like if somebody was like on their deathbed, right?
No, you're not understanding, right? You're straw manning again.
How?
So I gave you a hypothetical, and you immediately straw manned it into a different hypothetical.
Okay, so you're saying if somebody's living the worst life possible,
So I'm right. So you did just straw man it.
What did you say then? I was summarizing it. I wasn't trying to like say that was exactly what you said, but what exactly did you say then? If you want to be specific.
I was asking you about if the worst life ever lived is acceptable, right?
Didn't you say would you after that though? Like what was your follow-up question to that?
Well, this is what happens when you don't pay attention, right? Is that you derail the entire conversation because you weren't listening.
No, I just missed what you said. I
Exactly.
apologize that
But
I have other
weren't
things I'm
listening.
going on.
This is why when you're debating, you should listen, you should pay attention.
This isn't a debate.
You should pay attention and listen. Otherwise, you end
This
up...
isn't a debate.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a debate because you're not paying attention. Okay, so look, the thing is, I was actually thinking about this. So this is very common and very frequent where people just don't listen to what I say and then they derail the entire conversation. But it's actually...
Can I just say something? Guys, we need to normalize gooning so we can decrease the chance.
So basically, as I've been explaining, the human brain has evolved to interfere with logical thoughts and to essentially suppress intelligence. And so part of that actually does manifest with people not being able to pay attention. So yeah, I am criticizing people for not listening and not paying attention, but at the end of the day, I do also have to understand that it's not their fault. So this is another very common thing that you should be looking out for if you're watching my streams. You should watch out for when people say, what were we talking about? Or hang on, I can't remember what I said. Or what did you say? I wasn't listening. It's because their concentration is effectively suppressed in order to prevent them from being able to think about this correctly. That keeps their intelligence level low, which is what the human mind needs essentially and how it functions. Okay, so yeah, losing concentration, not listening, these are all other forms of irrationality, just like other stuff. Richard, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm a big fan of your work and your pro-extinction movement. I'm not here for a debate. I just want to ask, how can I share this pro-extinction movement and let it have a bigger effect on people?
Yeah, well, what we're doing is growing the movement with videos mostly. So yeah, most people are just making videos explaining that suffering is unacceptable and that the solution is total extinction, and to help us grow the movement until we can actually do it.
Thank you so much for your time.
No worries, thanks for coming up. And for anybody else wanting to join the movement, you can do it through the links on my profile. You can read our website, you can join the Discord, the WhatsApp group. All of the links are on my profile. Hello, how you doing?
Hi,
Yeah, hello.
it's me again. Don't hang up. Let's debate. I'm really trying.
Okay.
It's suffering is when someone disconnects me because they have a different opinion about how to start the debate.
It
But let's,
happens. So yeah, what do you think? Should we end all suffering or not?
should we what?
Should we end suffering? Should we abolish it? Get rid of it?
It is very possible to abolish suffering without annihilating the entire population of the
How?
human race.
How?
Well, first we have to dismantle certain power structures, and that is
So how is that going to lead to suffering being physically impossible?
well, it honestly goes back to, which is what you don't want to talk about, is what is suffering. It's so many, like you and the other gentleman talked about earlier. Suffering
So
has so many.
that's kind of a dodge, right?
No,
I'm
no,
asking
no.
you. No, I'm asking you
What?
to explain your position.
Okay. How do I what?
This is your position, your thoughts, your ideas. So let's hear you explain it.
Okay, so you want to, let's go back to you. Let's do it that way. Let's go around another way. Okay, let's go with you. You want to end all life, okay? All life has been ended before.
When?
It's a cycle.
When?
You and I are living in a cycle of life,
So
and then
you just said all life was ended before. When did that
yes.
happen? When?
Well, it depends on your basic belief system. I believe that God has ended all life.
Look, you have no idea what you're talking about. You're just making things up, right? And if you want to debate God and religion and give us a sermon, then you should start your own live stream for it, right? We're not here to discuss the Bible. We're not here to discuss the Great Flood.
Brother James.
Hello, how you doing?
How are you?
Yeah, good.
You good today?
Indeed.
Why? Why extinct everyone?
So that they don't have to suffer.
But why?
Because,
But make suffer.
yeah, I mean, suffering is bad. It's not acceptable, right? It can be really bad. So, if we're going to allow or disallow, if we're going to have rules and decide what's good and bad, what's allowed, what's not allowed, then
So that not extinction. You know how you extinct everyone.
With our movement. So we're going to get
How
people
that
together.
work?
Yeah, so we get people together and then we make extinction happen. We find a way to do it and we carry it out.
That seems illogical.
Why? What would you do?
I would kill you.
Okay. All right, moving on. We have Damien in the queue. And anybody else that wants to debate, feel free to join the queue. Hello, how you doing?
Hi, so I just had a question. It's like, why would you not allow someone to just choose their ability to choose suffering over death?
Yeah, because most people are not able to make correct decisions or responsible decisions when it comes to their own safety or the safety of others.
Right, so let's say that you are, for example, me. I'm experiencing some amount of suffering, but the amount of joy that I'm experiencing is more than that, and that's why I don't kill myself. That's also why you aren't killing yourself right now.
How do you know?
Otherwise you would.
How do you know?
How do I know
You
that?
say you're making assumptions, right?
What assumption am I making?
Well, you're making assumptions about my personal life.
Oh no, I said about myself.
No, you said that the same is true for me.
Okay, I guess you're right. But why would you want to live in a world of suffering when you could just end it?
So that we can help make sure that nobody has to suffer.
But you're making the assumption that I don't choose to suffer on purpose in order to...
No, we don't care about your choice. We just want to make sure you don't suffer and nobody else suffers.
Okay, but if I have some amount of suffering, and then I have some amount of joy, but I am choosing myself that I will go through the suffering in order to feel the joy.
Yeah, but the thing is that you are in danger of unacceptable types of suffering. And so if we just leave you to suffer, then there's a high chance that you will suffer in an unacceptable way, right?
And what would you say is an unacceptable way?
Well, there's lots of different types, But
So
the thing is that we don't need to draw a line on it, right? Because that doesn't actually help anything. So we know that it's possible, and we should prevent it from happening.
well, what would what would you call? I don't understand what you're trying to tell me.
Look, you're proving my point perfectly, right? Most humans are incapable of understanding that they are in danger of suffering so badly that their entire life would have been better off not existing, not even being born, right? So you're demonstrating that point perfectly. Humans are not capable of making responsible decisions for themselves or others, and they don't understand that there is extreme suffering in the world and a high risk of being trapped in a life of pure hell where you're begging for death. You're demonstrating that perfectly, and you're demonstrating why people are incorrect, why they're wrong about wanting life to exist and themselves to keep living, because they're completely ignorant and unaware of all of the danger that they're in. And you've just demonstrated it perfectly.
All right, I'm not finding like the exact words, but can I take this from a different angle?
Sure.
So do you agree that we have had less suffering now than, let's say,
No.
1,000 or 2,000 years?
Suffering has never improved for animals, and you could also say that it's not really improving for humans either, because we've got more and more humans, so there's more and more suffering. And whereas medicine might have improved, methods of torture have also improved. So you've got the internet, but then you've got the child porn industry on the internet. So as science and technology improves, suffering can get worse as well.
Okay. But do you think that, like, if we have an infinite cosmos, that this will just, even if we successfully cause everyone to go extinct, that we will just have the same thing happen again in however so many billion years?
Well, we should try and prevent that from happening. But even if we fail and it does come back, then it's still better to have prevented as much suffering as we can.
All right, so I guess what these other people are trying to do, which is like define suffering, might be sort of the best route, but I do see what you mean. I do see like your point of view, and I guess that it's sort of a black box, right? Like
It really comes down to, do you find extreme suffering unacceptable or acceptable? For extinctionists, we find it to be unacceptable, right? A child being tortured to death, an animal being tortured to death, a person living a life of pure hell, the worst life ever lived, the most pain ever lived, ever experienced. We would say that that's unacceptable, right? Forcing someone into the worst life ever lived, the most pain ever experienced, is unacceptable. Whereas most people think, yeah, who cares? That's fine. That's not a problem. So that's kind of the main difference between extinctionists and non-extinctionists. We find extreme suffering and a life of pure hell for whoever it is having to go through that. We find that unacceptable. Like, we can't just ignore it and allow it and go on about our day, whereas most people would.
And so what do you think about the nature of like experience? So like, do you think that you, by like destroying all what I think of as humans, is going to remove experience? Because I am sort of a consciousness fundamentalist.
Yeah, I mean, look, if there's no life, there'll be no suffering. It's as simple as that. And yet, life doesn't need to exist. It's really not that big of a deal. There's no moral urgency for life to exist. Nothing really bad happens if life doesn't exist, right? We don't mourn for those who don't exist. Life not existing is not really a problem. It's perfectly acceptable for life to not exist, whereas it's not acceptable for extreme suffering and extreme cruelty to be forced onto innocence.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess then you don't think that there's any way, you don't think that there's a utopian society that is possible?
No, the thing is that most people would be happy to just reduce suffering, right? Well, actually, most people are happy with the amount of suffering there is today, and take it even further than that. Most people don't care how much suffering there is. They don't care if it gets worse, if there's more suffering. Most people would actually be happy for humanity to colonize the entire universe and to fill every planet with animals who are going to suffer the same way they do on Earth, right? Most people would be very happy for wild animal suffering to, multiply by a factor of a trillion, basically, right? So, yeah, we have to be against this. We have to actually have morality and be against suffering, right? Most people they don't care about it. They want more suffering.
Well, you're just saying that most people don't care, but I'm asking you, is it possible that for you to envision a utopian society that is not causing the extinction of everything?
Yeah, okay, good question. So our standard for it to be acceptable for life to exist is only if there's certainty of safety. And certainty of safety for life to exist is only possible with omniscience. You would have to know that there are no unknowns because unknowns present infinite danger and infinite risk of it going wrong, right? It's unlimited risk. You cannot, it would only be your fantasy that you would limit that risk in your head, right? If you don't know what there is out there, then there's infinite risk, infinite unknown, infinite danger. Like, for example, your simulation could go wrong. Let's say in the future we make a simulation, we put people into it. If there's no certainty of safety, if there's no 100% safety, then it can go infinitely wrong, right? You could become trapped in hell in that simulation for billions of years. So we have to think about the dangers, right? Most people don't want to be responsible. They don't want to think about if it goes wrong. They don't care if anybody has to suffer as a result. They're thinking in like the most irresponsible way possible. They're not thinking of if it goes wrong. They just don't care.
Okay. And you think that, so for example, let's say that you had some sort of society somehow where everything would go perfectly. Like there could be, for example, just like a meteorite and then like it would ruin it all, or some random event.
Well, the thing is that let's say you do have a perfect society, it can go wrong somehow, right? And again, because unless you know everything and you know that there are no unknowns, then there's infinite ways in which it can go wrong and how badly it can go wrong. And so life doesn't deserve to exist in infinite danger. It should only ever exist if there's certainty of safety. So it doesn't matter if you reduce suffering, you're still in the exact same situation with infinite danger, right? It could still go infinitely wrong, if not worse. Again, right? You've got better technology now, so now you have super torture. Right, so and just like with a simulation, right, you could put into a simulation, and then if it goes wrong, you could be tortured for billions of years. So actually, things getting more progressed and more advanced with science and technology, it actually gives a higher chances of things going wrong as well. So again, you have to think about all of the ways in which it can go wrong, all of the risks, the dangers. That is the responsible thing to do, whereas most people just want to ignore all of that, right? They would be the first ones to jump into that simulation, and if they get tortured for billions of years, then they didn't care that it happened until it's too late, and then they're trapped.
Right, but also I don't believe that the human brain can understand the infinite. But for example, let's imagine that there's an advanced AI somehow in the future that can comprehend the infinite. Would that not be able to then create a certainty of safety?
So the thing is about certainty of safety is that it's also not necessarily possible. So we know that it would require omniscience, but it's also possible that omniscience would not be able to provide certainty of safety, right? It might just not be something that it can do. So we don't know if it will ever be possible for life to exist with certainty of safety, but we do know that if it ever is possible, it would be the most difficult thing possible, and virtually the most impossible thing. Whereas extinction is already possible, we know it will work, right? And there's no chance of it really going wrong.
Right,
and even if there is a chance of it going wrong, it's going to be better than the alternative, right? If there's less life, then there's less that can suffer. If there's no life.
This is, I think, how I would a little bit disagree, because I think that it would be better to try your best in order to reach that certainty of safety instead of becoming extinct because of the inevitability within the infinite of this cycle happening again infinitely, even if you do every time cause extinction.
Well, the thing is that we can reach that same level with extinction. That's the thing. So you don't need to allow all of the animals to be tortured in order to do that.
What I'm saying is that it's because we live within an infinite reality where we know that once we cause extinction, that it is essentially inevitable that it will come again.
Well, you don't know that, right? You don't know that for sure. And secondly, even if that is the case, we can try and prevent it, right? So you would not even try to do anything, and you would just assume, things that we don't actually have any reason to believe in.
Well, I think that we do have a reason to believe that life came about once. There's very detailed ways that we have used science to understand how
Well, look,
things that are
Damien, we
clearly
shouldn't rely on just random assumptions like you're making that, oh, life will definitely come back in, the next universe. You
but
don't
that's
know
not
that.
but that's not what I'm saying. I'm
It
saying
is.
that the way that the nature of energy is that it builds and it grows, and the way that we have seen through biology and through physics is that things from literally protons and electrons have built into large organisms that we are, which is us,
So why do
over
animals need
billions
to
of years.
suffer?
Huh?
So why do animals need to suffer?
They
Why?
don't need to suffer.
So why shouldn't we do animal extinction?
Why should we not do animal extinction?
Yeah, you're saying we shouldn't do extinction because of protons, right? So why does protons existing mean that animals should suffer?
I think that at this point we don't need that anymore, and that, well, okay, I'm saying that some amount of suffering is necessary in order to create this safety.
Yeah. So let's get back onto the animals. Why do animals need to suffer for protons?
For protons, well, I mean, not necessarily for protons, but for our ability for the universe's ability to create a high enough consciousness in order to create.
And how does animal suffering help with that?
I mean, in some ways, in order to feed organisms that require that energy to grow higher consciousness.
So, so you would leave it to evolution?
I guess so.
So we've got humans who already have intelligence, and you would allow all of the animals to keep being tortured so that they can continue to evolve into humans, even though we already have humans. So you would rely on.
I don't think
mice.
humans are the.
You would try and make mice evolve into humans, even though we already have humans.
No, not now. Now there's no reason for animal suffering.
So we should do animal extinction.
Either that or try to create an animal utopia, I guess.
Okay, but think of it this way, Damien, right? If we took over the planet tomorrow, would you start doing extinction, considering that there is no way to click your fingers and solve suffering in any other way?
No, because what I'm saying
So
is
you
that
would let the animals suffer. You would keep them suffering.
I guess so, but I mean,
why? Why though? Why?
Because what I've trying to be telling you. Do you not agree that
so that mice
it is a
can evolve into
possibility
gods? So that mice can evolve into gods.
No, not so that mice can evolve into gods. So that we can prevent the future possibility.
And why do animals need to suffer for that to happen? Why? How is animals killing each other in a forest helping that?
It's not.
So why wouldn't you do animal extinction?
Okay, fine. Animal extinction we can agree on is one way to do.
But you've said you wouldn't do animal extinction. You've said that we need them to keep killing each other until they evolve into gods, because because humanity can't do that. We need mice to be eaten by cats because that really helps.
What I was saying was in the past, before there were humans.
But you've just said you wouldn't do animal extinction.
Well, because I think that a lot of humans still depend on animal, like food, essentially, for food.
Okay, so what if we remove our dependence on animals and do animal extinction?
Then I agree that could be a way to remove a lot of suffering.
Okay, but my point is that extinction is the only way to end animal suffering today, right? So if we get into power, we would start helping the victims of suffering immediately. You, on the other hand, would allow them to suffer indefinitely and hope that the mice suffer enough to evolve into gods.
Well, not exactly. I think.
Well, Damien, that is what you said, okay? And you can try and run away from it now that we've exposed that it sounds completely insane, but you did say that several times, right? That, yeah, we need animals to suffer, we benefit from their suffering. No, and you also said that, look, a lot of people have made a similar argument in terms of universe-wide extinction. A lot of people have said that the more life the less suffering there will be, which just doesn't make any sense, right? We don't need animals killing each other in nature for any reason, right? It doesn't create any massive benefit. They're not going to suddenly turn into gods, if they suffer enough. There's no benefit, right? There's no great meaning or need or benefit from animals killing each other and starving to death and all sorts of horrible things. People just defend suffering for any reason, right? They will look for any excuse. Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Yes. So I really do agree with a lot of what you're saying because unfortunately humanity has always been doomed and it always will be as well with the animals, and they're suffering in all types of different ways, physical, mental, and then it's deers out there becoming roadkill and stuff, and people hitting the deers with the sticks because they ran it over and stuff like that. So it's like I'm not depressed, I'm not suicidal anymore, but I just look at it and it's just like we just need to just really just stop with all of this humanity because a perfect utopia is not realistic. You could hope for it, but it's not realistic.
Yeah, look, our solution is to work towards a universe with no life and no possibility of life, right? To make it impossible for any life to exist. So that's the conclusion of extinctionism, right? It's not just doing human extinction, it's doing animal extinction and human extinction, universe-wide extinction, and total prevention as well. Not just removing the life, but making sure no life ever comes back. So that's what we have to work towards, right? A universe with no life, no suffering ever again, no possibility of suffering.
I think that one way to have that is to advocate for more pro-choice and to tell more people to have less kids, basically. Like
Actually, the more kids we have right now, the better. So temporarily, we have to keep reproducing so that we can help animals and we can do a proper scientific extinction. The thing is that if humanity declines in population now, then it will be much harder to do animal extinction, right? To make every last animal extinct on Earth and to make sure that they never evolve ever again, that's probably going to take a very long time. And the less humans we have, the harder that will be. And the more humans we have now, for every extra human, it prevents millions of wild animals from having to suffer. Because we take up so much land. You have farming, you have your house, you have your city, roads, water, factories, food. All of this stuff takes up massive amounts of land for one person. And that actually does, over the entire life, prevent millions of wild animals from having to suffer throughout the entire life. So the more humans we have, the less animals will suffer, and the sooner we will be able to end suffering for everyone. So most people have a kind of discriminatory, limited empathy, right? They only care about humans, they don't care about animals, or they don't want to do a proper job, they want to rush it. So look, we have billions of years of suffering to try and prevent. There's no point rushing it, and there's no point just removing life and hoping it never comes back. We have to do a proper job. We have to make sure that Earth is uninhabitable, that it's impossible for life to exist on Earth. And the same for the rest of the universe if we can.
No, I agree with you on all of that, but I do have a question.
Okay.
So I know that you're saying that more humans are better for the animals right now, but are you taking into account like hunting, like the fact that people go out and specifically hunt for sport? And,
Yeah, so that's actually a good thing. That's
other
actually a good thing.
kids, and they're like, kids that grow up to be SKs, they typically start on animals first.
Yeah, But look, so some of those children will turn out to be psychopaths and start hurting animals. But the alternative is much worse, right? If we don't do a proper extinction for every animal and do it properly, then there will be much more suffering for billions of years, right? So we have to do a proper job, and humans are the only ones that can do it, right? If humanity goes extinct, animals will suffer horrifically, much worse for billions of years, right? The few children that torture some animals, that's going to be nothing compared to all of the animals killing each other and eating each other.
Okay. No, yeah, I get that, because then you have all the animal anti-cruelty organizations and stuff like that. So
But it makes no difference, right? Look, 99% of suffering on this planet is in nature. It's animals killing each other, right? Eating each other. Animals are food on legs, right? They literally exist to be eaten. So animals get eaten alive. That's basically what nature designed them for, right? So yeah, most of their suffering is in nature, right? It's like a bloodbath.
yeah, but you know that I'm not like debating with you. Like, I agree with that. We would be better off as
Yeah, no,
a
I'm
whole. That we should
I'm
all
just
be
trying to
gone.
explain that over 99% of suffering on the planet has nothing to do with humanity, right? So the vast, vast, vast majority of suffering, pain, misery, cruelty, starving to death, burning alive, all of these things, they happen without humanity, right? Humanity has basically no impact on them. In fact, it's the opposite. So, for example, humanity, it actually just reduces suffering on Earth, right? From the very beginning, from the very moment that humanity existed as a species, ironically, all we've done is reduce suffering, right? It's really ironic, right? It's kind of crazy to think about, and most people have the complete opposite thinking. But since humanity came onto the planet, all they've done is reduce suffering. And it may seem like they're doing cruelty, they're exploiting animals, but actually we are clearing out land, basically. We are clearing out habitat, deforestation, right? Chopping down trees, mining operations, building roads and stuff. And so this might cause temporary suffering, but it actually reduces suffering in the long term because there'll be no life to exist and suffer. And that's actually a good thing. So yeah, humanity existing and populating the planet and building cities and everything, all of this reduces suffering massively. And overfishing and hunting, they also reduce suffering massively, right? So overfishing is massive. It's a gigantic thing, right? Let's actually get some statistics on this because this is really interesting. So humanity overfishing is reducing suffering big time. So let's see, ChatGPT, what has overfishing done to the general world population of fish? Let's see. But yeah, basically, you have to see the world as an ocean of suffering, and humanity coming into it and building cities, that wipes out a lot of the suffering, right? It's just the more land we take, the less suffering there will be, basically.
Yeah, I just don't know that. Well, I guess one thing I have accepted is that this movement is gonna definitely outlast everybody that's going to watch this. Like, it's not just something that's gonna happen in our lifetimes.
Yeah, but look, just because it's not going to happen in our lifetimes doesn't
We still
mean that.
gotta start it off. I do understand that for sure.
Yeah, if we don't do activism to grow the movement, then it will never happen. And yeah, honestly, activists in the movement, we really don't care if we see it in our lifetime. We just care that we're doing the right thing.
I definitely agree. So are there, like, when you think about it, are there any methods that you could think of that actually would help right now? Or is there anything that we could do right now to help move it forward, aside from just telling people that this idea even exists.
Well, I mean, that's the first thing to do, right? Is to grow the movement, tell people that it exists. Look, this is a new idea. This is a brand new idea. People haven't heard about it, right? The movement only started 4 years ago. And, this is the first time there's been a serious movement about extinction, right? Ethylism and antinatalism, they're not serious. This is the first time there's been a real, proper, and intelligent movement for extinction. And yeah, there's lots of people out there who will be happy to join and grow the movement with us who just haven't heard about it. So we don't actually have to try too hard to convince people that it's the right thing to do. Most people that we're looking for, the people that will help grow the movement, they're going to be happy to join, right? They're going to be desperate to join. They're going to want to join. So in that sense, technically, I think that viral videos are the best way to grow the movement, because you don't need a super complicated message. Just, a short, funny video or something. If it explains enough, like grow the movement with us, proextinction.com, then that's it. So a weaker message with more views is actually better than a stronger message with less views, because the people that we need to reach will not need a strong message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my ultimate takeaway is that all humans born into this earth is automatically subjected to some type of suffering, as well as with any living organism, not just humans, but any living and breathing organism.
That's it. Life is the ultimate problem, and we have to solve it, basically. Life existing is a bad thing. That's what we need to start understanding, right? It's not like sometimes it's bad. No, it's bad, full stop, right? It shouldn't exist, and we really need to start changing our mentalities on this. And really, it's about life not existing in unsafe conditions, right? That's why life shouldn't exist. That's why it's a bad thing, because it causes suffering, it causes harm. So life should only exist if there's certainty of safety, which is not possible, unfortunately.
No. Right, exactly. That's the thing that a lot of your guests just don't realize. Like in a fairy tale, you can't.
Yeah, they have a low standard for safety, right? They don't care about safety. When it comes to suffering, if it happens to somebody else, they don't care. And
as long as it's not them.
Yeah, and they also think it's not going to happen to them.
Well, life is super unpredictable. Like you have no idea what's going to happen from one moment to the next.
Yeah, exactly. So they really are unaware of the suffering, the risk, the danger. And they're just not able to make responsible decisions. So we have to educate people, and that's the way to do it, right? To tell people about this, to explain it, to debate it. And look, growing the movement with videos is one thing that we're doing. Another thing that we're doing is, like I said, reproducing. So, for example, some people in the movement are donating sperm so that 20 years from now, there could be hundreds of new activists that, because the thing is that making videos to get new activists and grow the movement, it's a type of reproduction, right? I'm an activist and I want to reproduce and get more activists. So it does make sense to use reproduction and donating sperm and genetics to do that as well. But look, if you need hope, if you need a reason to have faith and to believe, then the best reason to have hope and faith in extinctionism and the future is that we are actually evolving towards extinctionism anyway. So the more intelligent life gets, the closer it gets to supporting extinction. And basically, humanity is still evolving right now. Competition is still happening among humanity. And so we are getting smarter. We are getting better and better. Our genetics are still improving. And so that is going to inevitably lead to more extinction, right? That's why we have extinction activists today. It's because humanity has finally evolved to the point where it's intelligent enough to understand what's right and wrong. And so that's just going to get better and better. We're going to have more and more people understanding that extinction is correct on a natural level from evolution. But if people start doing genetic engineering and trying to improve and increase intelligence that way, then that is also going to lead to extinctionism. So, all roads essentially lead to the rationality, the intelligent position that is extinction, right? The more intelligent humanity gets, the more closer it will get to the intelligent position of extinctionism.
Okay, so you think that people right now, I just want to reiterate, so you think that people right now should be having kids? Like between a person that's like just I have one kid and that's it, I don't want to do that again.
So
Versus somebody
here's the
that's
reason.
got
Here's the reason why. Okay, look, we have lots of animals that need our help, right? And if we don't reproduce, then they will suffer, right? So, think about it this way: humanity reproducing for a couple hundred more years, or maybe a few thousand more years, it's not really a lot to ask to prevent billions of years of animal suffering, right? And think about it this way, right? If we don't do a proper job with animal extinction, then they'll probably just evolve into humans again and suffer as humans do. So, there's no point allowing that to happen just to, protect a few humans today, right? We have billions of years of future suffering to do a proper job on, to make sure it doesn't happen and to make sure we help every last animal. So, yeah.
interesting point. I'm gonna get ready to leave soon so you can have like an actual debate because I mostly just been asking questions, but that's just an interesting point. I'm gonna have to do more research on that because
Yeah, you
my
should.
thought on population, I would just think that less humans would be better because it would be less people eating them and hunting them and doing all of that. And I still think that. So, but you're saying something else. So I'm just gonna have to do my own research. But overall, I still just agree that
Yeah. Ash, thank you for coming on. I suggest you check our website, proextinction.com. You can read about us there, right? We have a lot of information, a lot of questions and answers on our website. I really think it will help you a lot if you read it. The link is on my profile. Okay, we have time for one more guest. We've got Zieg coming up.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
So my question is, how do you know that we're the only one in the whole universe?
We think there will actually be lots of life in the universe, right? So that's why we support universe-wide extinction.
Yeah, but how can when we get to the point of when we know now it's time for the total extinction, how do you know that we found all the lives? How do we know that there's not some other life?
So we should just do our best, basically.
One more time, what do you say?
We should do our best.
But all right, so
yeah, look, the point is to not rush it, right? So everybody for some reason has this weird mentality when they think about extinction. They think that we have to rush it. We have to do it as fast as possible. But no, we should make sure we do it properly, do it thoroughly, right? It's better to do a proper job than a fast job.
Yeah, right. That was basically my question, because I was wondering, because I thought you wanted to do this pretty fast, but I heard later on in your conversation before that you said a few thousand years. But
that was just an idea, right? The thing is that if we have to continue forever, then we should do it, right? Let's imagine that there are humans continuing on forever, but they're preventing billions of animals from suffering, right? That's why they're continuing on, right? So if we have to, then it would be the right thing, right? Humans are going to suffer the least. We have the best conditions. We have the smallest population, yet we have the biggest ability to help, right? So it makes perfect sense for humanity to do whatever it takes to help other life. Now, we should do as much as we can, but it's possible that we can replace ourselves with AI and robots. And look, that could happen a lot sooner. So, it could happen that 100 years from now, humanity is completely useless. We don't need them. The robots can carry on the extinction mission. And so, yeah, we're like, okay, well, I guess, yeah, humanity doesn't need to keep reproducing. Just get rid of it. So we only need to keep reproducing as long as humanity is necessary, right? And if we can replace that need with AI and robots, then that would be the best case scenario so that humanity can go extinct as well and not have to suffer anymore.
Okay. All right. Thank you for answering my question. That was it.
All right. Thank you, Zieg. All right. I'm going to have to get going, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I will be streaming again tomorrow for another good few hours like I've done today. So, yeah, join us tomorrow. Check out the website as well. The link is on my profile. You know, if you can't be bothered to type it in, you can join our Discord, our WhatsApp group. Check out the manifesto, the FAQ, frequently asked questions, on our website, proextinction.com. And consider becoming an activist, right? Consider helping us to grow the movement to make ending all suffering possible. Because right now, people think we should have more suffering, right? They want more suffering, more people, more animals to keep suffering even more, and they don't care if they suffer. So we have to change that, grow the movement, help us grow the anti-suffering movement, right? Because right now, everybody wants even more suffering, and they want to allow it and ignore it. So we can't do that. Let's help those who are suffering, because nobody else is going to do it, right? So join us today, proextinction.com.